I'm sitting with producer Alan Maher, known for Song of Granite, Citadel and Knuckle, and also selected as one of European Film Promotion's producers on the move. So congratulations and thanks for meeting me today.
Thanks, Mark.
I guess my first question would be where did it all start for you?
Well, actually, when I was very young, I was very shy, and my parents sent me to drama classes. So I was an actor I started acting really when I was 10. I had my first little role in a film when I was 10 years old in a series. And then I was acting on and off and started to have less and less interest in school. I just hated school and I never wanted to go anymore. So I did various little bits and bobs, and I joined the Dublin Youth Theatre, which was very influential, and that led to me even trying to do some directing, and wrote some short plays for them as well, and was very busy. And then when I finished with all that, finished with school, I went to Samuel Beckett Centre to study acting in drama school, and then when I finished that, I went to the UK and did some more pieces of work like Cracker, and what else I do? Some other TV series, and then I did a film here in Ireland that did okay. But I suppose at a certain point, I started to realise that it didn't feel like anything ever changed in terms of acting. Nothing led to something else. So it wasn't as if I was really getting any traction. So everything was as tough after a role as it was or before I got the role. And even all these, and I think that becomes very frustrating when even though I was very young, but I was out of work for like a year or 18 months. And at that point, you don't have any control, and it's a very tough life. And actually, I don't think I was very limited as an actor. I don't think I could have, there wasn't much I could do a little bit of comic acting, and I was pretty good at that, but it wasn't something I could really see myself becoming a full-time actor. And the challenges especially in the Irish industry at that time there wouldn't have been that many opportunities. Right. But even now, a lot of actors move to London anyway, and further afield. And then at that point, I'd already produced a play, but mainly just to kind of get casting directors in to see me, that I acted in myself. And so I had a little bit of the knowledge of producing. I mean, I was a terrible theatre producer, and we lost lots of money, but at least I did it. And then I started working while I was waiting for acting jobs. Back here in Ireland, I worked with David Rain, who's was at Vinegar Hill Productions, a production company, and David's having great success at the moment with School Life, which is directed by Nasa Ni Keenan, who's fantastic. So, and David did a lot of documentaries there, and he brought me into the company to try and put together the drama slate, which was very challenging, and because again I was quite inexperienced and I still hadn't quite settled on what I wanted to be. And anyway, then I produced a short film for under the Irish Film Board short cuts scheme, which then became Signatures, which is now Focus Shorts. So that was my first full producing job. And then, because it seems very long, but then anyway, Element, I worked with Element and Ed Guiney and Andrew Lowe. I was their head of development for a few years, and that was really an amazing experience, and I learned so much from those guys who are really, really fantastic. And they were just starting off. And then I worked with Simon Perry, the film board, then for 6.5 years, and then I set up this company after that. There you go. That was good with potted history.
Cool. So you got a taste for production then? Yeah,
I mean, I kind of fell into it. I mean, mainly I was more script. I wanted to be a development person, really. I liked scripts, and then I didn't come up through production, so I had a different set of skills. Sounds like Liam Neeson, but I had come through, so I didn't have I didn't have that experience of being on the ground in production, which a lot of producers do. I was coming from development, and then post Element, and while I was at Element, even though I didn't do it at Element, but I learned a lot from Andrew Lowe and Ed Guiney about financing, and how to put that together. And when I was at the board, I learned, of course, even more. We were across films and closing the finance of films, and sales and distribution, which were all areas I wouldn't have really thought about so much before. And then subsequently it's kind of become where I've seemed to be doing, putting a lot of effort into is that side of things. So I do love being a creative producer, but oddly enough, I've seemed to have gotten into more of the financing and closing. But every producer does lots of different things. It's hard to kind of pin down.
You wouldn't describe yourself as specifically a creative
no,
producer?
not anymore. I probably would at one point. I mean, I think, but not now. I just think that it's. I do love. I mean, I do work very closely with the directors we're working with, and it sort of varies. I mean, like Pat Collins on Song of Granite. Pat is an auteur, essentially, isn't he? I mean, it's what Pat has a vision for his films, and you back that vision, you support it. It's not, and with his writing partners Sharon Woolley and Owen McGilla Breda, they have, very much and his editor Tyga Sullivan and Richard Kendrick, who shoots his films, and John Brennan, who does the sound. I mean, there's really a team there that realizes Pat's vision, and to say my role on that wasn't to kind of stand beside Pat on set or sit in the edit like 24 hours a day. I mean, it was there just to try as best I could to kind of give him the tools he needed to make the film, and then subsequently put the film in a space where it can be exploited, internationally. They were the kind of main tools. And I do have a producing partner, Jesse Fisk, who thankfully would have taken care of a lot of the production stuff on that as I was closing the film, which was challenging, but there you go.
So later this week you're heading off to Cannes for Producers on the Move. So what is Producers on the Move?
It's oh god, I hope I get this right. It's like it's a European film promotion initiative. It selects producers from a number of European countries who then go and I suppose represent those companies as a producer on the move. And it's mainly there, I think, really to encourage co-productions and to work with the other producers who are there from various other countries and try and build up those relationships. So as a result of those relationships, you could work together and find films organically that you can develop or produce together. And it creates a little bit, I mean, it puts your name in front of people to a degree. I mean, people pay attention. We have, dinners and case studies and speed dating and all these different things. Speed dating for filmmaking as opposed to just life speed dating would be kind of weird. But like it's, so that was, but it's really a great honor, and and the other producers seem really great, and a lot of the producers I've met some, like Chris Martin, who's works from Belfast. I know quite well. He produced Good Vibrations, which when I was at the Irish Film Board I was across as an exec, and I know Chris very well. He's a lovely guy, and really talented, and really cool. Chris sort of has his, he really kind of has his finger on the pulse of what's going on. He's got a really kind of natural ability to kind of sniff out really good projects. So I mean, it's going to be a pleasure being there with Chris, because he's such a lovely guy, and I don't know any of the others yet, but it's fine. And then we'll and that's really it. And then that kind of, it gives you, I suppose, a platform as much as anything can to then utilize that to help get perhaps some of the tougher meetings, or it puts something in context. But I'd probably be in Cannes anyway, because I'll be doing my own meetings, but it's really nice, and it's a great honor, and I was delighted to be selected, and it felt like it's been a kind of a good year so far, so that felt like something else positive that kind of came out of it.
And are you bringing a new project with you too?
Well, we've been developing. Well, with Song of Granite, we've still got some territories to sell, and Song of Granite, we kind of went a slightly unusual route with that, which when we'd had the film finished, we decided to go to SXSW, which has been very good to Irish films in the past, like Citadel and Charlie Casanova and Patrick's Day and I'm Not a Serial Killer, which was there last year. So we, and Janet Pearson, who runs the festival, and Jim Colmar, who programs international films, are just brilliant people, lovely. And when Janet and Jim invited us, it was unusual in that perhaps we wouldn't think it was a natural home sometimes for a Song of Granite, but I think the music elements in Song of Granite and the music side of SXSW it was part of the decision. I mean, my main reason was that it's a great festival, and Janet and Jim are brilliant programmers, and it was, again, I was just delighted and to be there and to have that relationship with Janet and Jim is amazing. But again, it's a festival that still feels like it's growing. It still hasn't hit which I think is great. It's on the way up, and but it's exciting. Yeah. And then when we went there, we just, out of that, my main goal was to secure US distribution for it. Okay. So, because if you're going to premiere at a US festival, you kind of want to get a US deal. So I'd always been very fond of Oscilloscope, who years ago, and that was started by Adam Yauch from the Beastie Boys, who sadly passed away a few years ago. But he was great, and he and his wife is still very much involved. And they'd released Kisses, an Irish film by Lance Daly, some years ago, and I'd met the team then with the Irish producers McDara Kelleher and Morgan Bush introduced me and got on very well. And Dan Berger, who's now taken over and is running the thing, he and I know each other very well, and I sort of was very persistent in that, and Pat really liked their work as well, because their library of titles is brilliant, and we want to be in that library, and Pat was really keen on this. So I mean, I felt if I can do this and get this work, then Pat will be happy, and we were happy, and myself and Jesse really targeted Oscilloscope in a really, and it worked out, and we're delighted. I mean, the idea that the main goal with this film, because it's in black and white, it's Irish language, it's about Sean No's singing, you're a Sean No singer, you just have to get it in front of an audience, because once people see it, they love it, but it's getting over all of those challenges and saying, look, just come to the cinema and watch this, and it's a very cinematic experience. So that was the main goal, and hopefully we'll have a release. Well, we know we will have a theatrical release, but hopefully it will be in November is what we're hoping, but let's see. And it's it was really, so that was vital. And so with Song of Granite in Cannes, we'll still be looking for some sales, and we'll also be there with a project with working title Trade, which Mark O'Halloran wrote. He wrote Viva and Garage, Adam and Paul, and Hong Khaou, who directed a film called Lilting, which was at Sundance a few years ago, is directing. And with the Bureau are co-producing, and Protagonist is selling that. So we'll be there to maybe see if we can shore up some financing. We're nearly financed on it, but we'll. And we have a film called Venice of the North, a documentary that Tom Burke is shooting in Utah, Alaska, that we're going to be there with, and we're just about to do a documentary with Jim Sheridan that we will, and Colin Quinn, that we will probably be talking about as well. And future projects. Jess is across the project with Kirsten Sheridan that we will also be pushing. So be various things. It's hard to know. I mean, like, some of it will be creating relationships and building relations, and others will be just, like, for example, getting all the different distributors in Song of Granite together and coming up with a kind of a unified approach to it. So there's like practical sitting down and other things to try and get people together to get the closing, get something going, and then so it's not just kind of but actually we will be doing work just closing things and getting things moving and progressing things as well.
Have you worked with Mark and Hong on previous projects?
No, I know Mark very well from being an actor, I think. I mean, Mark is still acting, he's a brilliant actor, but that's when I think I first met him. And I got to know him a bit during the Adam and Paul period. I mean, I didn't do anything on the film, I watched a couple of cuts, but it was, I know him a bit from that, and that was it. And then when I left the film board, I just approached him and said, "But did you have anything you'd like to work on?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I have this play that I want to do an adaptation of for film," and and we talked about it. I love the idea, and then we eventually we found Hong, and Hong came on as director, and he's been brilliant. Like, he really kind of immersed himself in the film and loved the script. I have to say, it's a really good script. I think I'm allowed to say that. It's a really, really good script. So, and then we've just been and then Mark is such a brilliant writer, but he takes such care with what he does, and no line is wasted, no line of dialogue, no scene direction, nothing. Everything has a meaning to it, and it's and Hong really engaged with that. Lilting is a beautiful film, and it's been a real pleasure actually. And the Bureau, who we're co-producing with in the UK, who did 45 Years and Weekend, and Daphne and Lean on Pete is their latest film with Andrew Haigh. So they are been terrific as well. So it's been a very pleasant experience so far. It's actually been, yes, that's where Mark and I would probably have known each other. And whereas I crossed anything at the board. Oh, Viva, I started, like that was the Cuban film which Treasure produced, which is excellent. I love that film. And I would have been in the early days, I would have been across that when they came into the board. And I think that was it really. Or down to the board Garage I was across a little bit, but that would probably mainly how I'd worked with them. But the film board means you kind of get to know everybody in a way.
I know you've worked on a lot of documentaries before. What projects do you like to get involved in?
Well, it depends. With documentaries, when I was at the film board, I sort of took care of documentaries, and I became very passionate about them, especially creative. Actually, not especially, only creative documentaries. I don't really have any interest in TV style docs, or I don't really have, so they can be very good, but kind of more current affairs, and certainly not kind of factual TV that sounds very snobby, but anyway, but not factual TV, and sort of, not because I couldn't do, but I'm not very good at that stuff, so I don't know what I'd kind of bring to kind of that sort of factual drama, so factual documentaries. What am I saying? All documentaries are factual. I'm kind of tripping myself up now. Well, yeah, factual TV. We really did put a lot of time into trying to push creative documentary, put it back in the cinema. There had been some great creative docs before before myself and Simon Perry started, but when we're there, we really did put our weight behind just finding people who wanted to make films for the big screen, documentary films. And I mean, work like Colony or His and Hers and Knuckle and The Pipe, that was great, and The Summit, and what else were we doing that time? Men at Lunch was really good. There was Wave Riders, Saviors. It was a really good run of excellent documentaries, and I think there was a period of time where I felt that the work we were doing in documentary was as strong, if not stronger, than some of the work that was happening on the drama side, or the narrative side. Do
you feel like you have more creative input on?
I think at the film board, definitely at the film board, because you only have so few people. So if we're on Knuckle, we essentially had ourselves and Ian Palmer, Michael Doyle, who shot it with Ian, and the editor Ollie Huddleston, and Teddy Leifert in the UK as the producer, and myself and Nick Fraser at Storyville. So that was it really, though. I mean, there's really nobody else. So you kind of have a team of 5 or 6 people, and in the edit that would have been like myself, Ian, Ollie, Teddy and Nick, and then when we're exploiting it was really just myself and Teddy who are working together on it. So you do get really closely involved. I mean, you have to be, because producers were looking to you to kind of really take on that exec producer role and to help the film and help shape the film. And it depends. I mean, on the bigger films, sometimes it would be a bit, you're just another voice in the room. As if you're a financier, you were trying to. It wasn't like you ever tried to control it, but you were. It was necessary. You were needed, and you felt needed. And actually, Keith Potter, who was across Song of Granite for the Irish Film Board, acted like that as well. He was, a genuine exec producer on it. He did everything. He was there with us all the way through, and you pick up the phone at any point, and he had a really great feeling for what the film was, and I think that's what you can look for. And it often is the smaller films that I think anybody who's funding or financing or have much more input into. It kind of feels, because if they get too big, you can go to rough cuts where there's like 15 people in the room, and everyone is jostling for position and say something, or at this film, and trying to get their voice heard. And it's sometimes more intimate, because I mean the work often you can't give notes in a crowded cinema. It's not crowded, but you know, a cinema screening room half full of people. It's better to sometimes just sit down with people and work it out, because I mean, sometimes a cut is like, why don't you try this, and if that works then you can see, or if it doesn't work at least you can see it. And that's always been the sort of basis of anything, I suppose, dealing with creative people, is you just ask them to try it. It may not work, but just please try this and let's see if it works. And if it doesn't, that's absolutely fine. I'm not going to force you to do it, but please just try it and see. And you might find that unlocks something, you know.
Yeah.
But as Lenny Abrams said, it's like when people give notes on films, this is going all over the place, but as Lenny said, sometimes the notes, you listen to all the notes, because that specific note may be wrong, but what it means for the film as a whole could be right. So that just there's something that isn't quite working. So it's like trying to figure out what that is. It may not be specifically what the note's about, but don't disregard it, because it could be, there's something else there that they might be getting at, that if you just take the time and go, okay, well, maybe not be that, but maybe the reason they feel that they're not emotionally engaged at that stage is that something didn't happen, you know, something happened 10 minutes before that we need to look at, and then if I help with that scene, then that other scene will work. So it's kind of listening to all that sort of thing.
I guess when you're working with something so closely, you sort of, you need somebody who's a little more detached.
Well, sometimes, and like I mean, not all opinions are good opinions, and you have to kind of engage with films on their own terms. You can't like say, well, this film should be more commercial. I hate that. I think being commercial is very difficult if you're not going to put the money behind promoting it anyway. So it's like, anyway. But documentaries are great. I love documentaries. We're working with Kieran Cassidy, who's fantastic. So we're working with Colin Quinn and Jim Sheridan on a doc. Tom Burke's doing a doc with us. Una Kearney is going to do something with us too. So we've got a lot of documentaries working, and we're still working with Ian Palmer and something as well. So we've got a good slate of docs, but they're hard work, and they're not for. And they need to be hard work. I don't know if there's ever going to be a point in time where docs are going to be like so well funded that you don't have to worry. I think you have to strive to. They're passion projects, and just put as much as you can into them, and not worry about making too much money, because they really don't. Or if they do, it's great. But I think it's more for. You really have to believe in them and want them to succeed in a different way. Great. Well, there you go.
So a big part of Producers on the Move is meeting these people from other European countries. So I guess coming from a small country, Ireland, how important are co-productions for the Irish film industry?
Well, they're vital. I think that it's very hard to... it's because we're such a small country, and we do rely on support really from outside of Ireland or different co-production structures. It's difficult because here we have the Irish Film Board, which is fantastic, and we have a very good tax credit, Section 481. So both of those are really great for film. I'm talking about film as opposed to TV drama or anything, but there really isn't any sort of there's no equivalent of BBC Films or Film 4 here. And that can make it, and there's no kind of equivalent scheme to say EIS in the UK, which is a slightly different thing. But so we have to look outside to mainly kind of fill the gap in a way. And the BAI, Broadcasting Authority of Ireland, are very supportive, but still kind of broadcaster driven. And TG Cahir, who are involved in Song of Granite, were excellent.
Yeah.
They're launching Cine 4, which is this new scheme which sounds great for feature length. Irish language films, but working with co-producers is very important. And Simon Perry, who ran the film board for 6 years when I was there, really pushed creative co-productions really a lot. The idea that you would work with, there might be a film here that originated from a different country, but they could do some work here, and then you could get into the idea of reciprocity with those other producers. So they would then, another Irish film would then work in whatever, Sweden or Finland or Luxembourg, or Brussels or Belgium. So it's vitally important. I mean, we have tended thus far to kind of look closer to UK and the work that we've been doing. But Song of Granite was a co-production with Canada and with Martin Paul, who's in Quebec.
Seems like a lot of Irish-Canadian productions are happening recently.
Yeah, well, it's Canadian. There's a co-production treaty that people will can avail of, which is great. And Canadians are also always look outside for co-production possibilities as well. And there's a shorthand for different financiers to work with each other. So co-productions are very important. I mean, but it's finding partners who you can work with well and who kind of get the project. So not just films that are trying to secure funding from different places, but there's something organic about it. But it is, if you find the right projects, it can work very well. And there's Irish producers who are very, very good and very strong at doing the sort of co-productions. But again, it's just finding the right people and finding the people that you feel that you can naturally work with and can get whatever your vision is for the piece. But it's good. Co-productions.
Yeah. Do you think the Irish film industry would be able to ever go it alone? Do you think?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like, it depends. It depends. It's. I mean, co-productions are what they are. I mean, they're not like they don't. I wouldn't say that it's either or. I mean, they're sort of a means of support. There's a means to an end there, and I think they're a very healthy thing. I mean, I think without it, it would be. And you do get the input from excellent co-producers, so I think it would be. There's no reason for us to go alone, but the Irish film goes it alone as such all the time. And Young Offenders was I wasn't a co-production. I don't think A Day for Mad Mary was a co-production. I have to check that, but I don't think so. Handsome Devil didn't operate as a co-production. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it. It's just. At a certain level, at a certain scale, probably will have to bring in someone else. Or there's also market money out there. So I mean, the idea that you could bring in sales advance or minimum guarantee from different territories. There's different ways to do it. So certainly, I mean, for commercial films now, it's very possible that you could go to somebody like Universal and they could put up a really healthy MG for Ireland on a film that really deserves. So there is. There are other opportunities, but at a certain scale, co-productions can be very useful, and it's not. Again, I think it's a way of getting films made and getting films on the screen and supporting talent and supporting the industry. And if you can make it work, it's fantastic. It's terrifically helpful. But it just depends on what structure what structure fits. I mean, comedies tend to be sometimes difficult in translation. It would be it might be a little tough to get those certain sensibilities across different territories. Anyway.
So you've mentioned that you worked in the Irish Film Board, and you also have your own production company, Marcie Films. What are the differences between the kind of public and private?
Well, it's huge differences. I mean, when we set it up as Rhodes Entertainment initially with Danielle Ryan, and then which is part of the Rhodes group, and Danielle was very supportive, and we had a good 3 years, I think, 3.5 years. Where Danielle we were running the company together, but as Danielle and Richard, her husband and business partner, decided to focus on different areas, and at that point we're sort of self-sufficient anyway from what the work we'd done. It felt like the right time that we kind of parted ways and decided to set up Marcie Films that Jesse now runs with Jesse Fisk. So that's been really rewarding, and those 3 years are vital for any company because it gave us the time and the support to develop projects to a certain level, and that was really, really vital for us. But the difference is, I mean, I suppose you have to think about paying the bills every month. I mean, the bills in terms of the office and staff and all that kind of thing, and that becomes a priority, and the company is a priority. I mean, are
there pros and cons?
Yeah, I mean, the film board was brilliant and it was great, but there's a lot of there's people who will never be happy with some of the recommendations one or the group makes. So we have to be and eventually it was very difficult. We worked very, very hard, as most people may find it hard to believe, but we actually did work really hard, and you're very much in the kind of, I suppose in Ireland people know who you are to a degree, and some people, as I said, will be happy with what you've said, some people are unhappy, and I think eventually it also was good to refresh those roles. I think it's good that guys were there at that time kind of moved on, and I think it's a healthy thing, and I think the industry needs more of those sort of, the idea, I think, that you could have a career in Ireland is vital for people starting out. It's okay, well, I'll work at this company for a while, then I'll work at that company, and then I might set up my own company, or I might go and work at the film board, or I might go and do this, or like that you kind of, well, this is your career. Oh, I see, you've done all sorts of different things. And I think the most healthy thing about the industry is that a company has Element, or specifically Element, is that you could be a producer who works for Element, as Morgan Martin's working with Element at the moment, and he's brilliant, and that these companies have a scale to them now that you can actually go in and there can be consolidation and people can work together. So we're not just all out on our own, like trying to put tiny companies or one-man shows, which are all good, but like it's actual growth. And I think with the film board, it gave me a lot of contacts and experience, and I learned loads, especially from Simon Perry, who's my mentor really, and it was very rewarding eventually, but it was tough, and we did care about films. We did care how successful they were or successful they weren't. And you will be sitting in a cinema at times, and it was brilliant when a film went well that one had really pushed. It was amazing, and then when they don't go so well, you're very disappointed for everyone. But we spent a lot of time, and on the documentaries, I spent a whole lot of time trying to get them into festivals and trying to help and trying to get them distribution and sales, and that was really brilliant. And I think because of the documentaries, nobody else is really doing that, so I had to learn from scratch really who the important festivals were, who the important sales agents were, who the important distributors were, and that gave me, I had no choice but to do that in order to try and help the documentary area be successful. I had to learn how to make it successful. But at this point it is, but that is, the whole thing is, now you make your own choices, you make your own decisions, and and the financing is hard, and closing is hard, and getting through week to week is hard. But having said that, it's not. There's a lot worse ways to try and make a living. But this is more. I'm enjoying this more than I did. At the moment, and working again, we're having Jesse Fisk, who's my producing partner, who's relatively new. It's just Jesse is doing terrifically well, and having the opportunity to sort of support careers in that way is great as well. And I'd love the company to continue to grow and be successful, but on our own terms. I think the films we tend to be doing are in we're not chasing audiences as such. We're not trying to do anything that's
you're making what you want to make.
Yeah, for the moment. Yeah, I mean, again, Song of Granite it's an unusual one because I'm not a Gaeilgeoir or anything, so it would be, but again, it's supporting a visionary filmmaker and trying to put his work out, bring Pat's work out into the world, and I think that's what we can do, because Pat's made a lot of films, and he's made a lot of films with Harvest Films, his own company, and so the only thing we have to find out where we can add value to projects, and if we can help, and if we can't help, then there's no point in us being involved. We might as well go to somebody else. Anyway,
what would you see as being successful after Producers on the Move, and then 5 years down the road as well?
Oh wow! Well, after Producers on the Move, I mean, everything is there's a sort of a momentum to certain projects. So we'd hope that we can continue to kind of move forward with trade and get that into production. So that'll be the next thing. Yeah. We're already starting work on the Jim Sheridan and Colm Quinn documentary. Venice of the North is shooting in Alaska at the moment. So we've got a bunch of stuff which is just happening. So I think if we can be, in 5 years, I'd like us to have a company that has the relationships and the slate to be impressive enough to then attract high caliber talent, as we've sort of done already, and also to sustain itself and to grow and continue to sort of employ a number of people. It's very important to me to have a successful company and to keep bringing people in and keep growing that side of things, and having a place where we can where new producers can come and we can support them and pay people as well as we can, and have a sort of thriving company that makes good work on our own terms, and to have, I suppose, an identity that is, I hate the word brand, but I think an identity that people would look at the films and go, okay, oh wow, it's one of those films. Like the way people might look at a Killer Films project and go, oh, it's Killer Films, okay, this is going to be really good. And or another level, Bad Robot, and go, oh, well, Bad Robot are doing this, that's really good. It's to try and have that sort of identity to go, okay, well, we'll spend time with this film because we know that the people behind it are really serious about it making a difference and just making good, strong work. Because I do think that audiences will find the good work if you allow them the opportunity to do so, and I think even Netflix has shown that lately. And making films that sort of make an impression or a difference in some way will be good. Or maybe retired in 5 years, and have and not be. But I mean, it's and hopefully the film industry. I do think Ireland is really come of age. I think it's in terms of film, and I think it will continue to do so. I think there's
nominated Best Picture anyway.
Yeah, I mean, like with Element and Treasure and Samson and Subotica, and it's Parallel. I mean, there's really fantastic companies, very well established, and people and Irish producers. People are amongst the best in the world. The expertise that is here and that's been passed down from different generations of producers is really quite awesome. It's difficult, and sometimes people don't quite appreciate that, and it can be really unhelpful when people kind of think that producers are there to rip people off and go around and drive big cars. Like it really isn't the case. But I mean, nobody could be. I mean, the reason why producers don't even respond to that stuff is couldn't be arsed. I mean, it's like you read in some of these magazines, you're like, oh, forget about it. What's the point? If they don't understand it, then they'll never understand. And box office. Oh well, this is box office. I read this on a website that didn't do very well. But nobody has any idea what the international sales are or what the kind of recruitment levels are, or I mean, people just don't have a clue, and instead kind of go, oh well, this took this much and didn't take as much as Guardians of the Galaxy, and so it's like, yeah, you don't really know what you're talking about, but that's all right. Let them away with it.
What do you think makes a good producer, and for advice for young filmmakers like myself moving forward?
Oh God, it's so good. What makes a good producer? I suppose tenacity, I suppose, and problem solving. Are the two things, and having and a knowledge of, I suppose, every area of it. So from the development side right through to the exploitation side. So the idea that you can have those. I'm not saying that I have all of those. I'm not a good producer, but like but I think tenacity and the ability to kind of get out there and sell the film and sell the company is a hugely important part, and having an objectivity to that as well. And I always kind of think with producers, there's no advantage to a director having a producer who's fighting and not getting on with funders and financiers. That's not a good producer. You don't want your producer doing that. The point of the producer is they have to be there in between the director and the financiers and funders, and be able to deal with them and be able to interpret what is being said. You can't if you suddenly get all irate and cranky and frustrated, or it's not a helpful position to be in. I think you've got to find a way to do that. And if your producer is always arguing and fighting with different funders or putting people's noses out of joint, or then I think that's not really a terrific producer, because you have to be there to be able to persuade people around to your point of view, and the director, and supporting the director, I think is the key thing as well, and supporting the vision of the director, and wanting to produce, I suppose, knowing what a producer does and wanting to do that and move on to the next project, because a producer. Because if your producer wants to direct, or producer wants to write, or producer who wants to act, that sounds weird, but anyway, maybe, then I think it's strange. I think you've got to want to produce, which also often means like this is your you finish this film and you go on to the next one, and you kind of keep going with that, and then you go on to the next one. You're building a slate of projects and a library of titles, and not just spend all that time. And that can be, and directors want your full attention all the time, which is probably my biggest flaw is focus, I think, and the one thing I've got to learn is focus on one thing at one time. Anyway, so yeah, but tenacity, I think, and not giving up, and just and problem solving, and if a film isn't going well, or if people aren't responding to the film, to get out there and find another route to get it to where you want to get to, and being realistic as well. Anyway, I think.
Thanks very much, Alan.
Okay, great.
Hope you have a good time in Cannes, and best of luck with all the projects in the near
future.
Great.
Thanks so much, Mark. Thank you.